ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون.
Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says this ayah, نزل هذه الآية, أو he said نزل هذه الآية على أحوال العالم. So he's saying to you, take this verse and apply it to the situation or the affairs that you see taking place in the world. Take this ayah, apply it to every affair, every situation that you see taking place in the world. So if you want to take this verse and apply it to, for example, Egypt, apply it to Egypt. The Arab Springs, the revolutions, apply it to the situation there. Right? Or any other country, apply it to any other country. He says, وَطَابِقْ بَيْنَ الْوَاقِعِ وَبَيْنَهَا. Compare, so take this ayah, apply it to what you see in the world, and then compare and contrast, apply it and compare between the reality that you see and between what this verse is telling you. And you will see وَأَنْتَ تَرَى كَيْفَ تَحْدُث مِنْ تِلْكَ الْآفَاتِ وَالْإِلَلِ. You will see how these calamities and these kind of flaws, they appear in every time. They're always appearing, meaning these deficiencies and flaws, whether it is in the fruits and the vegetation and the animals, and how these calamities and flaws and defects, that they come in succession, they are tied one to another. He says, وَكُلَّمَا أَحْدَثَ النَّاسِ ظُلْمًا وَفُجُورًا أَحْدَثَ لَهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى مِنَ الْآفَاتِ وَالْإِلَلِ. Every time the people, they bring about an instance of dhulm, an instance of oppression, right? So the subject now, you oppress another person, you oppress him in something, or you commit fujur, you commit some sin. Every time this happens, their Lord, the Blessed and the Most High, what does He do? He brings out a calamity and some flaw or deficiency in وَالْإِلَلْ فِي أَغْذِيَتِهِمْ, in their food, in their nutrition, وَفَوَاكِهِهِمْ, in their fruits that they harvest, وَأَحْوِيَتِهِمْ وَمِيَاهِهِمْ, and basically in the environment as well, in the waters, in the streams, in the waters, in the rivers, and in the air that they breathe, وَأَبْدَانِهِمْ, and in their bodies, وَخَلْقِهِمْ, and in the physical form and the structure of their bodies, وَسُوَرِهِمْ, and in their appearances, وَأَشْكَالِهِمْ, and in their forms and shapes, وَأَخْلَاقِهِمْ, and in their characteristics and qualities. So he brings out in all of these affairs, مِنَ النَّقْصِ وَالْآفَاتِ مَا هُوَ مُوجِبُ أَعْمَالِهِمْ وَظُلْمِهِمْ وَفُجُورِهِمْ. So he brings out flaws and deficiencies in all of these things that we mentioned, such calamities and flaws which are necessitated and demanded by their own actions, the actions which they are committing, the actions of dhulm, of oppression of each other, and the actions of the fujur, which is their sin. Now he gives a really nice example. He says, وَلَقَدْ كَانَتِ الْحُبُوبُ مِنَ الْحِنْطَةِ وَغَيْرِهَا أَكْبَرُ مِمَّا هِيَ الْيَوْمِ. He says that today, or he says that if you were to take a grain of wheat today, you will come to realize that in the time that has gone, a grain of wheat used to be much larger than it is today. كَمَا كَانَتِ الْبَرَكَةُ فِيهَا أَعْظَمُ. Just like the blessing in that grain of wheat was much greater. وقد روى الإمام أحمد بإسناده. Imam Ahmad has related with his isnad أنه وجد في خزائن بعد بني أمية سرة فيها حنطة أمثال نوى التمر مكتوبا عليها هذا كان ينبت أيام العدل. He said that, narrating from Imam Ahmad, that Bani Umayyah, so this is Ibn al-Qayyim narrating about the time of Imam Ahmad, who was saying that in the time of Bani Umayyah, which is 100 roughly years before Imam Ahmad, that they found a treasure chest of Bani Umayyah. And in this treasure chest, they found a grain of wheat. And this grain of wheat was the size of the date stone. It was this big, the grain of wheat. Right? It was that big. And it was written on this grain of wheat, هذا كان ينبت أيام العدل. This is what used to grow in the days of justice. In the days of justice. When there was adl in the society, then this is how the wheat would grow in such a large size, and it would be of great barakah, plenty of barakah. So he says, وَهَذِهِ الْقِصَّةَ ذَكَرَهَا فِي مُسْنَدِهِ على, this story he mentioned in his musnad. Then he goes on to explain that most of these diseases وأكثر هذه الأمراض والآفات العامة بقية عذاب عذبت به الأمم السالفة. Most of these calamities that you see in the society, so remember, we are supposed to be applying this to everything that we see in the world, right? He's saying that most of these diseases and these general calamities that you see, they are simply a remnant. They are the after effects and the remnants or the remains of a punishment by which the previous nations were punished with. Then these calamities and these diseases, they were allowed to remain so that anyone who did the same deeds as those destroyed nations, then these calamities and these afflictions will come and afflict them as well. In other words, all of those previous nations who have been mentioned in the Quran and who have been destroyed in a variety of different ways, whether it be the people of Nuh alayhi salam, whether it be the people of Iyaad and the Thamud, right? So many nations destroyed in different ways. Some of them drowned, some of them swallowed by the earth, some of them destroyed completely by the wind, a fierce wind. Others, for example, like it is mentioned here, the Bani Israel, in fact he says that ثُمَّ بَقِيَتْ مِنْهَا بَقِيَّةً مَرْصَدَةً لِمَنْ بَقِيَتْ عَلَيْهِ بَقِيَّةً مِنْ أَعْمَالِهِمْ. So these calamities and these types of diseases, they remained so that they can ambush any person who does the same deeds as those people did. And he says, حُكْمًا قِسْطًا وَقَضَاءً عَدْلًا. This is a just judgment and a just ruling. He says, وَقَدْ أَشَارَ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم إلى هذا بقوله في الطاعون إنه بقية رجز أو عذاب أرسل على بني إسرائيل. So he mentioned about the plague. What is the plague? He said the plague, this disease that comes and it spreads, whatever. He says this is a remnant of the punishment that was sent upon Bani Israel. وكذلك سلط الله عز وجل الريح على قوم 7 ليال وثمانية أيام. Likewise, Allah, He sent the wind for 7 nights and 8 days, and this is some of the nations of the past, like Iyaad. So the point being, he is saying that all the calamities you see and the hardships that you see and all of the deficiencies that you find in people's appearances, in their bodies, in the food that they are eating and everything else, then this has a certain reason and a cause, and the decrease in barakah. All of this returns back to the people's deeds, the people's actions, the people's dhulm, the people's fujur that they fall into.